Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. I am Troy Parkins, and I'm here with
Janna Colasso, your very casually dressed and friendly hypnotherapist.
As always, great to see you. I love the outdoor motif. It's awesome. Very cool. And we're doing something zany today, too, aren't we?
Always.
We're doing something very zany. We're doing a countdown, Janna. We're going to do a 5 for 5 because here's the thing. I get a lot of questions on what is there to know about hypnotherapy? Now, we cover a lot during our discussions, but sometimes people just want, well, the top thing is this, then there's this, then there's this, and hey, I think 5 for 5. We run this about a half an hour, so I think 5 for 5 is good. What do you think?
I think it's fantastic. You're going to have to keep me on track, though.
I have in the old days, they used to say a gong or a buzzer, but I have something even zanier than that. And it's on my phone, and you just wait. As they say, wait, there's more. So
I can't wait to find out.
We have that to look forward to, and I can't wait to find out what the top 5 are. See, this is the best part about our shows is we briefly talk through things, but details come out organically. And I'm very excited to hear what these 5 things are. And really what this format's going to be is I'm going to say, all right, Janna, let's go. And once Janna starts naming what the topic is, I will be changing this banner down here. If you notice, we have our cool branding with the logo up over there. And it's very fun stuff. So without further ado, I'm making sure you don't have to lift anything because Janna is in super duper, super athlete training. She could hardly lift the chicken to eat and the hedge cutters, which might be a good thing. Like, who wants to cut hedges?
Yard work. Excuse for no more yard work. My shoulders, everything.
It's good.
Tear down week before the big peer-to-peer swim next Sunday. So I've been swimming like a complete maniac and to the point of muscle failure. So if I look a little dazed and confused more than usual, that's why. I'm enthusiastic funny. Inside. There's just not enough muscles to move my mouth very much.
Well, as long as these muscles are moving, you're fine. You don't have to have any inflection over here, right? So you're fine. You're good. Good. Okay. All right. Let's start with topic number 1. What is it? Let's go.
The first topic, people come to hypnosis to get out of hypnosis. They don't know that that's why they're coming to hypnosis. They'll call me and say, I'm anxious. Or they'll call me and say, I'm overwhelmed. Or they'll call me and say, nobody at work likes me and I can't stand it when I'm in a crowded room of people because I pick up their energy. That's why they don't call me and say I'm in hypnosis. But the fact of the matter is they're in hypnosis. About 20% of the population has what we call an open inhibitory process. So that means that the part of you between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Hey, where did Troy go?
I'm here. He is. I just made you full screen.
Oh. Well, hey. So the part between the conscious and subconscious mind isn't 100% knitted together yet. And that means you may be ambling along, minding your own business, and somebody calls you fat and it goes in like a dagger in your heart. Or somebody is angry or uptight that lives in your house and you feel like the whole atmosphere of your house is angry and uptight and it affects you. So that's part of being in hypnosis all the time. And there's a couple of clues. They're not absolutes. You might ask yourself, for example, if you have some of the symptoms that say that you're in hypnosis all the time that are indicators of an open inhibitory process. One is you can be very, very lost in thought very easily. Like my youngest son, for example, he can sit there and watch TV and I can say, George, dinner's ready. Nothing.
Is that like he's on autopilot?
George,
He's kind of
dinner's ready, and he can't hear me. George, finally I'm like, George, and he'll be like, oh, what, mommy? Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't. And he didn't mean to ignore me, but it's a hyper focus. So that's, if you are the type that hyper focuses, or you know somebody who's a hyper focuser, that's one of the indicators of it. If you've ever driven past your freeway exit because you're totally lost in thought on a regular basis, you might have this tendency to be in a natural state of hypnosis all the time. If you hear music and it evokes overpowering emotions from times past, to the point where it's hard for you to even have music on in an ambient room because you focus in on it and it evokes memories of your ex, for example, that's an indicator of it. If you have ever awakened in the middle of the night and felt paralyzed, like you couldn't move your body or talk, that's another one. As a child, if you were more affected by your parents' tone of voice than by what they actually said, that's another indicator. If you're susceptible to addictions because you get anxious a lot, if you become fearful for what you know is no logical good reason, you might be in what we call a natural somnambulistic state, which is a light state of being in hypnosis all the time. And the good news about that is it's super easy to fix. There's ways to close the inhibitory process so that you're a little more awake, aware, and alert. And the younger, the better. So if this is something that you're noticing and maybe you're a teen or in your early 20s, that's even better. If you get a little older than that, now we start to believe the fearful thoughts. Now it takes a little longer to unravel them, but it's still completely doable. So most people who have that natural state of hypnosis going on have been affected by their own inner thinking. Their own inner thinking can create a tremendous amount of angst. So, but again, nobody calls and says, oh, hey, Janna, I am in hypnosis and I need you to wake me up. Nobody says that because they don't know that. But bottom line is that's a little bit of what's going on.
Wow. And guess what? You nailed it. 5 minutes. That was the ham horn, by the way. And I have to say, that was a surprising one to me. As in, we hadn't actually talked through that methodology of come to hypnosis to get out of hypnosis.
Right.
So that is pretty awesome. And I know that we will have a show on that whole thing. Like, man, you were dropping some 25-cent words, man. That was awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know.
True.
I was going to say that's why they pay me the big bucks now. 25-cent words. That's my claim to fame.
25-cent words, man. Okay, very good one. So that's a good one. Number one. So we got 4 more. Hit me with number 2.
Okay, well, I've got the open water swimming on my mind lately, and boy, have I had some amazing conversations with some of my friends and teammates. You guys would be astounded if you knew how scared of sharks or deep water people are. And all you have to do is go, oh my God, I'd never do an open water swim. There's sharks out there. So let's just look at that for a second. Are there sharks out there? Of course there are. A few. Are they dangerous to human beings? Maybe. What are the percentage odds of being eaten or bitten by a shark during an open water swim in Southern California? Well,
Very low.
Very
I would
low.
think.
Like they've done stuff like that. The odds of being struck by lightning are much, much, much greater. I haven't seen any sharks in the last couple of years, but I have seen small leopard sharks and things in years gone by. And I understand that right now there's quite a few baby great whites out there. But here's the thing, they're not man-eating. You know, they're kind and very disinterested in humans. Now, I want you to notice what's going on in your body right now as I say that, oh, hell no, I'd never go out there in the water. That's not a logical thought, because logically, you know, I'm right. But the reaction that says, oh, no, 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 was put there by people like Peter Benchley, who wrote the book Jaws, and Steven Spielberg, who produced that movie, and all the people who have capitalized on that have written episodes of Shark Week and that sort of thing. So that's what it is there's been imagery. You've seen on the big screen or the little screen these terrible shark encounters, right? And the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between reality and fantasy. That's why when you go to a horror movie, your heart beats really fast and your palms sweat when you see something like a zombie on the screen and you know there's no such thing as zombies. We know that sharks don't really eat people on a regular basis. If they do, it's a complete mistake. They thought it was a seal, or it's some very rare occurrence. And it happens in certain environments and certain beaches, but we know the beaches that are generally safe. And we know logically we're safe, but subconsciously we fear sharks. And that's because our fight flight mechanism has been triggered during a TV or movie episode or episodes. And it's gone in as though it's a danger. So that's why people who know it's really safe to go out there still go out there and freak out. So I've had these amazing conversations with people. This is something that is incredibly easy to pull out. Any type of fear like that. I was sitting here a moment ago and 2 huge wasps were flying around me. And as a child, I had a phobic fear of any sort of bee or wasp. And all I had was I was like, oh, what a cute wasp. Oh, isn't that nice? Maybe it'll land on me for good luck. I don't have that anymore. So the overwhelming subconscious triggers that create the horrible fear feelings, those may not be completely logical. So we know that bees and wasps could sting me, right? But just sitting here noticing it's there, the odds of it stinging me are almost 0. So the overwhelming fear doesn't need to be there. So in ways to get the part that's afraid to calm down, not to lose common sense, just to calm down in things that are illogical. So if you notice you're illogically affected by something like a shark or a bee or
A zombie.
like that would be a reason.
Unless you're in The Walking Dead. But, you know.
Wah, wah, wah.
So now, that was a really good one. Unreasonable fear. I love the shark imagery. We could even make up that. Fear of public speaking could be one of these as well. That there's really nothing, I mean, what's going to happen? You're not going to die on stage. You're probably not going to pass out. Well, hopefully you don't pass out and people laugh at you, but you're not going to die.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that when they listed off the studies of the things people are afraid of the most, and I know you've heard this, that public speaking is number 1 fear next to the fear of death. And everyone knows that nothing terrible. You're standing there and people say, well, just stand there and pretend like the audience is naked, or just stand there and pretend like you're just talking to one person, or just think, And it doesn't, notice how it doesn't fix it, you know? So
No.
that's a big reason to come to hypnosis. You know, back in hunter-gatherer days, it really was important to be accepted, because in the same way an animal can't be weak, they might get culled from the herd. Or the lion is going to eat the weakest, slowest gazelle, right? Humans used to get left behind in hunter-gatherer days if they were weak. So it was very important that the rest of the tribe liked you, that you had value. And if you fucked up, maybe you would get left behind. So it's part of our ancestral inheritance, so to speak, a little of it. Or it could be that when you were 5 and you went to school for the first time and the teacher called on you and you got up and you said something and people laughed at you. It could be something like that. There's all sorts of causes, and I'm really good at uncovering the cause, but we don't always necessarily have to know the cause. Even without knowing the cause, we can still take what's logical, which is that you can get up and speak in front of people, and it can be even more fun than just speaking to someone one-on-one. It could even be more relaxing. So whatever we can conjure up like that, wouldn't it be great if speaking in a public place was so much fun, we craved doing it, it was even more confidence building, even more relaxing than just speaking to one person? If you can conjure it up, we can make that work. And we can get the knowledge that you're really not needing to go through a big fight, flight, panic feeling in order to stand up on the stage. None of those panicky feelings are logical. So that's why it does zero good to look and go, why do I feel this way? How come I'm so nervous? I'm going to try to not be nervous. Well, good luck with that. It doesn't work because it's not part of the logical mind in the frontal lobe. It's part of the fight flight mechanism. And that doesn't take suggestions from your logical mind, like not ever.
Well said. And I know somebody that can help with getting you to be the best public speaker.
Yeah.
Because look, if you have a lot of good things to say and you can get over that nervousness, hey, you know, it's all about the flow. It's all about the. So I like it. Now, my favorite number 3.
I won't even ask you why that's your favorite number, but I'm going to ask you, Troy, why is that your favorite number?
Well, okay. I do love 3s. I have, well, my birthday is on a 3, so I think that's where it started. But the first time, you probably don't even know this story. The first time I won a significant amount of money in a casino was when I played a game called Keno, which is like old 70-year-old men play it, right? And it's a game where it's like bingo, but it's only like one bunch of balls, 20 balls go out, and then you pick numbers on a card. So I picked 3 numbers on a card, and my numbers were 3, 13, and 33. And guess what came out in that game? 3, 13, and 33.
Okay,
And I
well,
believe
that's reason enough right there.
And I believe back in like 1990 or whenever it was, I won a whopping $42.
Well, there you go.
So that answers the question. So thank you for asking that. I do love to share zany tidbits.
I had to know. All right, guys. So tip number 3, and I'm just pulling these out of my ass, by the way. Spontaneous is the way I roll. But entanglement in the energy field of someone else. Like, have you ever gone to one of those soft serve ice cream places and gotten a swirl cone with chocolate and vanilla swirled together? sometimes we get into relationship. It might be the relationship with your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, but it could be a best friend. It could be it could be a parent even, but you start to lose your beliefs and your, I want to say sovereignty, which sounds like a really stuck up word, but I'm not sure how else to put it. But we stop sometimes knowing what we want or what our values are, and become kind of chocolate and vanilla swirled together with somebody else. And you'll find yourself saying, should I feel like this? What should I do? Or you'll ask that person like over and over and over again what they think you should do about something. That's a sign that you've got a kind of, I hate to use the word codependent, but it ends up being that. So one of the best things about hypnosis, and I've heard that certain types of psychedelic drug trips can help with this too. Not like I'm promoting that, I'm not, but you can start to notice what your own preferences are, what your own values are. And we can heighten and brighten that so that you know. It doesn't mean you're not tolerant of someone else's perspective, but you're not all enmeshed, okay? And when we can separate your chocolate out from their vanilla, then you can appreciate their vanilla and they can appreciate your chocolate. And there's actually greater intimacy. People start to connect on a deeper level because there's joy and respect in who that other person is. But we no longer need to become that other person and take on that other person's belief system. We can really be in awe and in admiration of that person's set of values, and the way they think can be just absolutely fascinating to us. But we can then own the way we see the world. This is really powerful because it gets you out of neediness and fear in a relationship and a feeling of low self-worth, or a feeling of not knowing what you really think or feel, a feeling of not knowing what's right for you and what's wrong for you. So that the way to kind of disentangle yourself, I had a client just ask me, I think it was a couple of days ago, but because I do a process called that has you in a bubble of light. And she goes, but what if I want somebody else in my bubble? And we had to have a conversation about that, because not having someone in your bubble, they're in their own bubble. All the love can flow back and forth. Okay. The connection can be even stronger, but your bubble is yours. And so there's a strengthening and of your sovereignty, of your creative value. And this comes up not only in relationships, but in creativity as well. Can you imagine if Bob Dylan thought that he should sing like, oh, I don't know, pick somebody like Frank Sinatra? It would have been a disaster. So people who have a very distinct style and who own that style and express that style, I'm guessing, at least not in the creative process, they're not entangled, okay, in some idea of I should be more like that person that I love, respect, and admire. They're willing to be their own entity. And when we're brave and courageous enough to be our own entity, then people know what they're getting when they get in relationship with us. They're not just getting a clone of themselves. And that, because that shit doesn't last. It becomes dark and bitter and difficult real quick.
Clones. Say no to clones.
You know, that sounds like a terrible fart. Like, you know that, right? Like, I'm glad I can't smell that thing from here. Ew. Stop.
That's from lots of bean burritos, I guess. Anyway,
Okay.
I love what you said about be clear on your own chocolate or your own vanilla, whatever you want to be,
Yeah.
as opposed to your swirl. So, very cool. I love number 3. Basically, to ground and find oneself. Hypnotherapy works for that. And that is a good tip. Tip number 3. I give it a thumbs up. My favorite number. So far, my favorite tip. However, I don't know what the next 2 tips are going to be. So, what is tip number 4?
I'd say tip number 4 is releasing fear. And we don't need to know why, but people are afraid. I know that I was afraid. I spent a lot of years being afraid a little bit and trying to combat being afraid. And then there were certain years where the fear was so overpowering, I thought I couldn't take it anymore. And then there were times where a wonderful angel in the flesh would step into my life and have infinite patience and put arms around me and tell me everything was going to be okay. And I felt much, much better. But I knew that it didn't help me transcend the fear. It just helped me breathe for a little bit. It helped me feel less alone, but I was still afraid, even though that person was there for me. I also knew that that person could never be strong enough, stable enough, long-lived enough, reliable enough to take my fear away. No mortal human being can. So taking fear away was a huge, huge reason that I got into this work in the first place. And it's really powerful to be able to live life without it. And so if I reclaim all the energy and all the thinking time I have spent in the past, for example, being scared, and I don't have that being scared part anymore, the quality of life is tremendously happier. So how to get rid of fear in hypnosis, hypnotherapy, remembering that we're all unique. All your stories are unique. Your life situations, your past experiences are uniquely yours. So it requires some variety of processes. The way I would help one client get over a fear of something would be very, very different from how I would help a different client get over something, even if their fear was of the same thing. You know, with some, you might need to go back and do some work on healing childhood trauma. And these type, or not, it could be something completely unrelated. I could go down the list of specifics, and most of those specifics may not necessarily apply to you. You're going to have your own list of beliefs of why you think you might be afraid. But again, it's largely not a product of, it's sort of like the shark thing. Like, yeah, you know, you had this experience. Yeah, you know that this terrible thing really might happen. But if you ask yourself, am I 100% certain that that terrible thing is a done deal? It's a certainty. The answer to that is almost always what? It's almost always no. So now we know that the subconscious is overbearing. It's taking over. We're in that fight flight mode. And that can get triggered quite easily. So getting over fear, not as difficult as one might think. So I've got a program for that, but the way I execute that program is different for every client.
And would it be different based on the type of fear they're trying to overcome? Like, for example, I hear a lot of PTSD, people with PTSD, the fear of whatever that was, versus something like we talked earlier about unreasonable fears, as in fear of speaking. Is there...
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like the fear of public speaking being an unreasonable fear, but it is, you know, all of them have a little bit of truth in them. If you had to give a presentation and speak at a conference at work and your boss was in the audience, there's a possibility that if you fell on your face,
you would get fired.
Not promoted. So there's no...
That is true.
Yeah,
that is
so
true.
It's like there's always a thread of truth in all our fears, and the mind will glom onto that and make it into a bigger deal than it actually is. So I would say that that's where it's confusing for people. Like my ex-husband, the second one, we went through a phase where when we were first married, he was very fearful of being robbed, like people breaking into the house. And I wasn't. Well, is it a guarantee that nobody's ever going to break into the house? No. Is it a guarantee that I'm right and we're safe? No. Is it a guarantee that he should be that paranoid? Because he was really fucking paranoid. No. So it's not about right or wrong. It's not about assessing the external situation. But we look at what is the logical, reasonable precaution? And we want to keep that common sense aspect very clear. That means that if I'm swimming along and I look over and right next to me is a 12-foot great white shark and his mouth is starting to open and he's salivating, maybe I swim to shore. Maybe I do. Okay? It doesn't mean my common sense just flies out the window. Right?
True that.
If I'm out, I got farted on. Oh my God. Okay, sorry.
No. You were on a good thread there. And because this is our 5 for 5, you know, we got to be consistent with it. Yeah. But I do want to keep going on that just a few more minutes, though, that whatever your techniques are, you know, it is different for everyone. Mm-hmm. I think that's important for people to know. Even if it's the same fear you said.
Yeah.
Now, we are at the finale.
Okay.
Number 5.
Okay.
So, what is number 5? What would you say? We have come to hypnosis to get out of hypnosis. We talked about get rid of that unreasonable fear, like fear of speaking. We got detach your energy from somebody else. Be your own chocolate. Let them be their own vanilla. You're not a swirl. And the last, which was a very interesting one, we did go deep on. This one was release fear. Tell me, my friendly hypnotherapist, what is number 5?
I see it as, I'm trying to correctly word this because hypnotherapists are not psychotherapists. In other words, if someone has a psychological disorder that's listed in the DSM Manual of Psychological Disorders, we treat those people and help those people while they are still under the supervision and with the permission of their psychotherapist. Same with a medical condition. So with that disclaimer put aside, one of the things that I like to help people with is depression. Now, if you were not seeing a psychotherapist and you were clinically depressed and needed to see a psychotherapist, you would go to your psychotherapist and we would get a referral form signed so that you could speak to me as well. So now that we've got that off the table, I'm thinking of the sort of down blue, low energy, tinged with a little bit of just low grade boredom or dread that keeps you stuck on the couch, not moving. That is hard. It's almost like walking through peanut butter or cement. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to get anything done. Everything feels overwhelming. And there's a general, like from Winnie the Pooh, remember Eeyore? Oh dear. Oh my. That kind of demeanor. The style of hypnotherapy and transformational coaching can really, really help that, because we're bringing a huge level of comfort and a feeling of grounded security in subconsciously, which changes the actual visceral feeling of life. And we're doing that by also releasing all the way we focus. So when we start to notice belief systems that become thoughts, and those thoughts have a chemical reaction and create a sense of low mood, low energy, overwhelmed feeling, boredom, maybe tinged with a little just, what am I doing here? I'm not fired up about anything. I don't have any enthusiasm about anything. There's nothing I'm looking forward to doing, that kind of thing. That's one of the things that kind of, and as you can tell, these 5 things I've talked about, they all kind of smush together, don't they? It's not like like our heads are very distinct. With a clump of an issue over here, we've got our fear of sharks over here, we're in a little hypnosis all the time over here, we've got, fear here, we've got this. It's not like it's partitioned out. So I like to work from large to small. So as we start to put in some general comfort suggestions, and we see how you feel in a week, you come back and we start to notice what's next and what's on your mind, and we take that. And then come back. Maybe the terrible symptoms have gone down from a 9 or a 10 down to a 4, for example. Then we look at that 4. What's going on with that? When did it come up? How is it? We take care of that. And you'll notice I haven't said anything like weight loss, because for me, weight loss is all about these other things as underlying causes. If you're stuck on the couch depressed and overwhelmed, what are you going to do? You're going to eat, right? If you're not fired up about anything. So it's not about the weight loss. It's about pulling out the old habits of thought, getting the sense of self-worth in, and then all the addictions go away. It doesn't matter if it's weight loss or too much drinking or smoking or any other thing. It's all about the subconscious mind and basically thinking less. And I would actually add this as an umbrella to all of it. Thinking too much pulls us out of the present moment.
True.
So a lot of hypnosis is retaining our common sense, our knowing that if the shark comes, we're going to swim faster. Okay, it's common sense. Swim for shore, right? If we feel like we're getting hypothermia and we lose neurological control in our hands and we're out in the middle of the ocean and it's cold, we're going to get out of the water after a few hours if it takes that long. So but we don't have to have a fear about it. We just know that, when we pass the hot stove in the kitchen, we put on a pot holder. We don't have to be scared of the stove to know that, we'd get burned if we reached in and did this or that. So we want to keep the common sense, think less, trust the common sense more, because none of us are stupid. our minds know what to do in a crisis, and they're going to be clearer and they're going to think better if we're not all full of being lost in thought all the time.
That is a good one. And guess what?
What?
Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait. Can you hear that?
Okay, that's either like an electric razor or a lawnmower. What the hell?
Oh, wow. It was supposed to be audience cheering.
Oh.
Yay. Yeah, it was supposed to be audience cheering, but, you know, I don't know. We need to add some production quality to our HypnoTalks. We're going to have to add some sound effects machines, maybe like music. What do you think?
Definitely.
But
I'm thinking of the Gong Show.
Oh yeah. Ding.
Yeah.
The gong.
Mm-hmm.
Not the ham horn, the gong. Or not the ham horn, the gong.
And they had like the Jeopardy music. Well, you know, there's so many shows that had great sound effects.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A-Team. Da, 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 da. Every time I heard that theme when I was a kid, I wanted to just run outside and go on the swing, go on the monkey bars, tumble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like light off fireworks. But you know, here in California, those are always illegal. So I had to go to Virginia to get wild with fireworks. So
Virginia. Sounds like there's stories there, doesn't it?
Maybe another Buffalo Milk episode one of these days.
Maybe.
So, just to recap, and this was, I really enjoyed this show. And you are a star, Ms. Janna.
You see
just
why
rattled
I like
those
Troy,
off.
Right? You see why I like Troy. He just says stuff like this all the time.
But results do not lie. You rattled off hypnosis to get out of hypnosis. Very astute on that one. Mm-hmm. And then we even talked about Unreasonable Fear, where you did talk about sharks. And look, and Angelico, also agrees. Angelico Francesco, oh no, what's his name? His full name?
Amatore. So he's protecting me from predators right now.
Sharks. That's awesome.
All 14 pounds of him. He's ready to stand between me and whoever's walking down the sidewalk.
See? So that is a fear that you don't have to worry about, a fear of other people. You have Angelico there.
I do.
So there's that. And I really liked this one. There's some great quotes on this one. Be your own chocolate. Be clear on your chocolate. Let the other person be clear on their vanilla or their chocolate or it could be peanut butter and chocolate. It could be milk and cookies. It could be peanut butter and jelly. All of those. And then I do like this. It seems like a lot of people's issues are, and they do revolve around fear, because the survival context that we live in is littered with fear.
Yeah.
Fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of, you just name it.
Yes.
And then the last one, and I do like the disclaimer that hypnotherapy does work with other therapies and other modalities. We did talk about this, and and things with like meditation and other spiritual type modalities, in addition to physical, like exercise and things like that, helps with depression.
Yes.
And you could add all these other things, but it totally makes sense that, you know, if you have an eating problem that you've determined, or you have a procrastination problem, or a problem that you perceive you're lazy, well, it could stem from the whole about depression, as you just said.
Yeah.
Love it.
And a lot of that is thinking too much. And that's pretty general, because if you talk to someone who's down, the stuff that they're worried about is legit stuff. So I'm
Yeah.
not here to say but we want to be able to start to balance our life situation and the challenges and obstacles that we're facing with a deeper knowing that everything's okay. Without having to have constant reassurance coming in from the external world all the time. And that constant reassurance can show up in a lot of forms. It can show up in the form of someone telling us how wonderful we are. Or it could be the stock market going up. Or it could be the people at work praising us for what a hard worker we are. Or it could be someone complimenting our physical body. It could be being the fastest swimmer at the peer-to-peer swim, or an Olympic athlete winning a medal. All those things are wonderful that I mentioned, but we do not ever want our well-being to be dependent upon those external things. We want to be moved to tears and gratitude when those external things are said to us or happen. But we want to feel completely secure all the time. So that if somebody hasn't texted you back,
you don't freak out.
That's right.
Where's that person?
That's right.
True
That's
that.
right. And that's one of those because the mind will disagree and say, "Oh no, how do we know everything's okay?" So the mind will
That's right. That
want to
person
pontificate
could be
on this.
dead.
Yeah. So that's one of those things we start to take control of knowing when we indulge our thinking mind and when we don't. And to start with, the mind is just thinking us. We don't have control over it. And that can be really scary to notice that we drift off lost in thought, and we can't help it. That's scary, but we can turn that around.
And that was your one, the hypnosis to get out of hypnosis, that autopilot. Yeah. I do see that as if you were going to rank these. I mean, fear is all over the place, but really it's that autopilot and getting present. And you did talk about that last week. We talked about presence, that is important. So that being said,
that's going to filter into all my sessions to a degree. It's not the only theme, but that's going to be mentioned in every session, because that's the one thing that does basically fix everything.
That's great. See, we always leave people with tips. That's what I love to do. I know we talked about this. We love to leave people with tips. So I would make up the tip that I'm going to leave you with, viewer out there, is how about this? Go on Janna's website and book an appointment with her. Simple as that. Let's go, as they say. Anyway.
Yeah, I do. I'm not all just using this time together that we're sharing just for self-promotion purposes. But if it's something that you're considering, then I do want to invite you to talk to me. I don't charge for a consultation because I can either help you or I'm going to refer you to somebody who can. Now, my approach is not right for everybody. And if it's not right for you, I'm going to suggest something that is right. I had a smoker 2 weeks ago call me for a quit smoking session. And he wanted to know why I did it in 3 sessions. And I said, well, because we're going to stop your smoking, but we're also going to stop the reasons you smoke. And he wasn't interested in that. And so I referred him to someone who did a strict behavior modification smoking cessation session. He didn't care about the reasons he smoked. I care about that stuff, and I'm not making him wrong. Not everybody is wanting this, And I guess my mission is to find the ones that my approach is just exactly what they've been looking for. But my approach is not to convince anybody that they need to come see me. If it feels right, and if it feels like it's interesting, then my door is wide open. And if it's not right for you, we'll determine that before we start work. Okay. And there's no hard feelings about that. And sometimes you just may want to wait a while. Sometimes you may want to go try something else. I do not do certain types of hypnotherapy. I don't do childbirth. I don't do certain types of pain management. Some types of pain management I do, but not other types. I don't do hypnoanesthesia, although I've got some good friends that do. And it's not that I can't do it, it's that that's not in my wheelhouse. This stuff that we've been talking about is in my wheelhouse. That's where my interest is. So again, it's not for everybody. And if it's not right for you, I'll suggest something that might be a better fit.
Well said. Well said, as always. And as always, thank you for joining, and thank you out there for joining. I did enjoy this format, and I got to play around with a bit of technology here, make some big screens and tickers and all that. So thank you for indulging me with that. And final words.
Final words? I love sharks, baby. Shark do 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 do. I love what you're afraid of.
That. Okay, cool. So, yeah. So tonight I'm going to stand on a ledge out here.
No.
And then
do something stupid.
I'm gonna stand on a ledge out here, and I'm gonna eat a bunch of zucchini, and then
You're afraid of zucchini, Troy?
Oh, that's true, right?
That's funny.
Yeah, actually, I used to say I was afraid of squash and zucchinis. So
that's funny.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? An eggplant. Eggplant scares me too. So my friend who I talked to, and I believe she watches this show as well. Her name's Buster Brownette, and Brownette says she thinks that was the funniest thing, that I was afraid of squash, that I went away from squash. And I would always say, Janna, whenever the topic came up, where do you want to go to dinner? I would say anywhere except for the Squash Factory.
The Squash Factory, my favorite restaurant too. Oh, what a shame. We can never get there.
Janna, we can't. Well, no going to the Squash Factory, I guess. And you know where that came from, right? There are two factories. There's the Cheesecake Factory, which and the Old Spaghetti Factory.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved the Old Spaghetti Factory in Sacktown, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, back in the days. Loved it. So yes, the Squash Factory. There will one day be a restaurant named the Squash Factory. I will not be frequent.
Well, whatever.
I'm not so afraid of it anymore.
You can send over here to me and I'll eat it. I'm a huge squash fan.
Cool. Well, it was like George Bush Sr. hated broccoli, and then people got like super offended, right? So they dumped like a bunch of broccoli in his front yard, in the front yard of the White House. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, delivery, two tons of broccoli. So if I ever become president, do not deliver squash on my front lawn.
Well, after this speech, if you ever become president, you know that there's just going to be crate after crate of squash deposited at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah. And whoever is the eventual owner of the Squash Factory will make commercials about this.
I don't know. I feel like squash needs to be redeemed after this conversation.
And it's called squash.
Yeah.
As always, a brilliant time. Good luck next week and win. I know you're going to win because
Well,
you always win.
Well, we'll
Whatever
find
your
out.
place is, you'll
It's
always
next
win.
Sunday. So if I show up on this call next Sunday looking like death warmed over, you'll all know why.
I told you when you win, I'm going to parade you around in my Lincoln and you're going to wave to everyone. And they're going to think, hey, it's the Olympics now. So Olympics, Olympic athlete, let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Cool. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah.
Peace. And go get them.
All right.